There we go. Hello, friends. It is July 5th, and we are still waiting for sports. But they're coming. We have about 20 days, about 3 weeks, until we start seeing some action. We've been seeing our baseball second spring training kickoff. That's pretty exciting to see. We're going to start seeing basketball player workouts. Also exciting. And I don't know, man. I feel like a kid at Christmas waiting for these sports to return. And I think a lot of other people feel the same way. Whoa, okay. Let's fix this. I think that's why I didn't have that so big. Trae Young signs with Clutch Sports. As we know, LeBron's business partner, close friends, sports agency. Immediately sparking rumors of Trae Young to LA. I believe he still has 3 more years guaranteed with the Hawks. Does he demand a trade if that's what really the end goal is here? I don't read too much into those things when those things occur, but Anthony Davis signs with Clutch Sports, and we know where he's at now. I don't see Trae Young. I don't see Atlanta trading him. I don't know that a lot of these young kids anymore feel the obligation to stay with teams their whole career. I think there are some that genuinely do want that to happen, but being loyal to where you're drafted does not always mean success is guaranteed. In fact, we've seen a lot of players not be able to win. Kevin Garnett, Kevin Durant. There was an attempt there to make it work, and unfortunately, they both had to go win championships elsewhere. I think Atlanta at least deserves a shot to try and build a winner there. And our weekly segment of Fix That Team. We're going to fix today the number 7 Chicago Bulls and what their draft order would be if there was no lottery and the season just ended today. They'd be the number 7 pick. And we're going to try to fix these teams. We got 3 of them slated up today, the Hornets and the Wizards as well. But the Bulls, what a tantalizing situation there. Very loaded with young talent, but they just haven't had a coach there to develop that. You've seen Zach LaVine not really mesh well with either the coaching staffs. I've given Zach LaVine the benefit of the doubt. He's a talented athlete, and if these coaches aren't earning his respect, why continue to carry them? I'm not of the belief that you just sit back and enjoy the ride on a train wreck. I think if all of us saw a small window of opportunity, we would want to do everything in our power to capitalize on that opportunity. And it's unfair to criticize these guys for wanting to capitalize on their windows. Zach LaVine, I think, is the real deal. I would love to see him in LA. Just like I'd love to see Bradley Beal there. I just don't think that either of those teams, that the Lakers have the capital to get either one of those players. So if I'm Chicago, I don't want to trade Zach LaVine. I want to build around him. I'd love to get a coach that could maximize the ceilings, maximize the potential of that roster. You have some very talented but inexperienced young players playing for inexperienced coaches. Wendell Carter Jr., Chris Dunn, Lauri Markkanen, Otto Porter Jr., Kobe White, Zach LaVine. A lot of young talent, and they really need a veteran like an Al Horford, a Chris Paul, someone to come bring a winning attitude from a winning culture to start bringing this rebuild to something. And I feel like they're right on the cusp of blowing this up. But look at these players I just listed. 26, 21, 23, 27, 20, 25. They're all so young. And right now you're up against all-time veterans. LeBron James. You're going up against another young team with a very good head coach in the Boston Celtics. 2 generational talents in Philly with Coach Brown. You have a nice mix of youth and veteran leadership in Miami with a great coach in Eric Spoelstra. So they're not, this isn't a team built to win right now, but it's a team to start heading that direction, because when these other teams drop off, you're the next one up, and you have all these years of competing, of heartbreak, and the moment you get that opportunity to, put the pedal to the metal, that's when you seize it. You get these guys up into their mid and late 20s, right as all these other teams are falling off, and you dominate for a couple years. During that time, you acquire more talent. You don't sign bad contracts, which is always hindsight. You always think a contract you're signing in the moment is a good deal, and it is always a good deal until it's not. I'd love to see them get a good center or just a really good talent out of this draft. It doesn't have to be a home run hitter right off the bat. With where they're going to be picking potentially, they could afford to go talent over need. But if they're in the play for James Wiseman, I think that's awesome. And I feel if I'm any team, finding a way to get Chris Paul and some more shooters there. The Bulls roster right now is pretty abysmal in the three-point shooting category. So if you get Chris Paul there, some more shooters, maybe some veteran shooters, allow the young kids to play in the short game. But if I'm any team, I want to get Chris Paul. Just about any team, I want to get Chris Paul. If I'm Houston, I don't want to go down that road again, but they should have made that work in the first place. We saw Harden want to go do his own thing in Houston versus staying and being the third wheel in Oklahoma City. So why would he want to share the spotlight with another dominant player and one that's going to hold him accountable? Chris Paul holds everyone accountable. He holds himself probably the most. All right, the number 8 pick in the draft, the Charlotte Hornets. This one, I have felt the same way about this team for the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. They drafted Kemba Walker and then really didn't hit on anything ever again until that guy walks in free agency. Never got anything, any compensation for him, you know. So they really botched that situation. But instead, during pretty much Kemba Walker's whole career, they were a 7-8 seed in a weak East. They've got a couple bad contracts, and Batum being the biggest one. But, acquiring Terry Rozier has not worked out, has not elevated them. They do have good young players I don't want to trade in Biyombo, Bridges, Graham, or Monk. Outside of those, everyone on that roster is free game if I'm the general manager there. And I want to get rid of anyone that's not those guys. Get draft picks, get whatever you can get for them to get them off the roster. And even if that means taking a step back for a year or two, getting some higher draft picks and better drafts. But they have to find a way to get out of this perpetual, every year, 7-8 spot in the East where they never amount to anything. And with their draft pick this year, in a draft that really doesn't have anything exciting jumping off the table, you have to do the impossible, which is try to find the sleeping star in the draft. The Milwaukee Bucks did they have visions of Giannis growing into what he grew into? If they did, then that's, I don't think anyone believes that, but the impossible is finding the next Giannis, finding the next Kawhi Leonard, just the sleeping star in the draft that no one knows is going to be a star. No one. Yeah, but if you find that person, you get a coach that can coach to that person's strengths. I think that's one of the things that the NBA draft is lacking, is that almost every single player is a coin flip at best. Honestly, probably worse the farther you go down in the draft. No duh. But even some of these top picks we've seen in weak drafts, coin flip. You move down farther in the draft and, coin flip of all coin flips, you find Giannis, Kawhi Leonard, players, no one saw with that. But if these kids coming into the NBA draft were older, say how and if college football players are, you see them starting to develop into an adult, a grown man. Whereas these kids coming into the NBA, man, they're not even done growing. Some of these guys still grow a couple inches after they've been drafted. And so if I want these kids to make their money, but I wish that the G League was the answer. Just like I wish these kids playing for college football were either paid or had the option to go play in a minor league system until they were draft eligible. So that way they can get paid for what they're doing. I have no problem with these student athletes getting paid. In fact, I don't understand why these colleges even feel the need to make them be the student and the student athlete. If they want the education, cool, offer it. But if they don't, let them collect that paycheck while they're making you money. these star quarterbacks for college, the star offensive players, star defensive players. It's quantifiable. They can see obviously how much a player brings to a program, a star player does, and those kids deserve, when they're making that much money for the colleges they're attending, they deserve some of that. And if they want to negotiate into their contract a college education, I have no problem with that. But this whole student athlete thing, it's a joke. Whenever would you do something for someone that made them a ton of money and the only thing you got in exchange was knowledge? Most people, depending on what the knowledge is, most people would not be okay with that. If I said, I'll teach you how to work on cars, but you have to come clean out my whole backyard, or you have to come play football for my team, put your body on the line, play football for me for 12 games for 3 years minimum, and I'll teach you how to work on cars, but you have to come do that for me. I don't think most people would take that. You're not making any money, so you still have that thing to worry about. Oh, I'll put you up and I'll give you food, but that's it. Most people are not going to do that. Most people want the freedom that money and income gives them in today's world. They have things they'd rather be doing. And they want to know at the end of the day when they're done that they can use the money they made to do something they do want to do. And after that wild tangent, the number 9 pick, the Washington Wizards. Now, this is the first team that's been invited to Orlando that I'll be trying to fix. And the Wizards, I felt differently up until today when I actually thought about what's wrong with the Wizards and what I'd like to see them do, what I would do if I'm the GM of the Washington Wizards. I want John Wall. This year is what it is. I come back next year with John Wall and Bradley Beal. And we've seen Bradley Beal carry this team on his own. So John Wall does not have to be the star night in and night out. He does not need to play back-to-backs. And he can spell Beal, allowing Beal to come off. If he comes back at even 80%, 75% of what he was before, he's still a solid player. Is he worth the contract he signed? No. But after a year and a half of no playing, this guy is coming back fresh. I would love to try to run this back for one more year. And if next year it doesn't work out, I blow it up. I trade them both for whatever I can get for him. John Wall will be a hard sell, but I'm looking to see what he's got left on his contract. John Wall, $38 million left on the contract. So what is that? One more year left on that contract? If he plays well, what do you sign him to, or does he leave? And Bradley Beal, you still have him for a couple more years. You try to see what you can build around him, and if not, you trade him. But I want to see that. I want to run that back. I thought Washington was right there where the Raptors were before LeBron left for the West. Although I thought the Raptors were closer than where the Wizards were before this all fell apart for them. Yeah, everything hinges around that. They can't make any more plans. I don't think that they take anything else on. They run back what they got. They try to acquire what they can with the spare change they have on this roster. I think they do have an opportunity to draft someone to contribute at where they'll be drafting at. If I'm Bradley Beal, the competitor in me, I want to play. The business person, I don't see it worth it coming back to play. Not with the roster of this team, what roster he has to work with. That's a one-man show. Let's see. I didn't fix this. All right. A tip for all of you out there. Background, I work as an automotive service advisor, and I was thinking, man, there's things that people don't know about their vehicles that I didn't know either before I started working there. And the first thing that came to mind was keys. People come into our shop and they'll hand me a keychain that weighs anywhere between a pound and 5 pounds. I kid you not. I had someone hand me the other day a 5-pound keychain. And what people don't realize is, especially with these newer vehicles, there's so much anti-theft hardware in your car, and a lot of that hinges around your key. Your key a lot of times has a chip in it that your car registers, so that way someone can't hotwire it. It takes your key to start that vehicle. Otherwise, it just disables it. And so people will have all this weight on their keychain, and that's pulling down on that key in the ignition cylinder and weighing it down and wearing out your ignition cylinder. And when that wears out and your key is no longer recognized, you won't be able to do anything. Now, you might be thinking it's not a big deal, but with newer keys that are chipped, they have to be cut and then programmed, and there's a lot that goes into that. For those of you in big cities, it's not as big of a deal, but you also have to remember your car's going to get taken into a place where they weren't anticipating you coming in. And so they may not be able to get to you right away. Now, some of you might have a long relationship with the shop that will, squeeze you in at a moment's notice. But for a lot of people that aren't regular with a repair facility or a dealership, you'll go to the back of the line, which during their busiest seasons or on holidays during the summer, they can be anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks out on their schedule. And the cost. A new key cut and programmed on average, I'd say, goes anywhere between $300 and, I kid you not, over $1,000 for some of you Audi, BMW people with these fancy key fobs, or just misfortune of the parts being that expensive. I've quoted people $1,000 to $1,500 for a key for some of the German imports. Even some of your domestic import or your domestic vehicles and Asian import vehicles, you can still be looking at usually at a minimum $300. So to preserve your key, preserve your lock cylinder, take everything off of it, all the miscellaneous stuff. If you've got something on there that really doesn't need to be on there and it's got any kind of weight to it, take it off. If you have keys that can go on a separate keychain and be somewhere safe, do that. Only keep the necessities on there to keep it nice and light and preserve the life of that lock cylinder you have, because it is a pain. It is a pain to have that go out when you're not anticipating it. Sometimes you get a warning where your anti-theft light will come on intermittently, but you'll be able to start it eventually. That's usually a sign that's happening. That can also be other things, but it can also be a sign that your lock cylinder is getting worn, is having a harder time recognizing the chip and or your key. And it's very important to have multiple keys. First, in case you lose one, you'll want to have a spare, so you're again not at the mercy of having to have your vehicle towed with no key to a shop where they're going to have to do all the legwork to get that information to cut you the key. So having multiple in case you lose one, which I recommend getting tiles, little square things that go on a keychain onto your keys that you can link to your phone and use your phone to find it, or vice versa. You can use your keychain tile to find your phone. They're like $15 to $25 depending on when you can get them on sale. If you can get a big pack of them for like $100, I recommend it. You'll want to put them on everyone's keys. I've been contemplating putting mine on my phone, on my wallet, just to be able to find those tiles as well if I were to ever lose my phone or wallet. But also your main key will get worn. So over time, you stick it into the lock cylinder, you turn it, it's a lot of wear. If you're having to use it to unlock your door, more wear, and eventually it'll make it harder for the lock cylinder to read it. And if you have anti-theft, then it can potentially lock you out from driving your vehicle. So having a second one to use for when the first one wears out, same principle as if you were to lose it. Because once it gets too worn to recognize, you will not be able to drive your vehicle, and depending on the key, you'll have a hard time. They'll have a hard time being able to copy your key, which means you'll have to pay more. We have word now that Masvidal and Usman have agreed to a fight pending coronavirus testing. And as long as they both come out clean, that's who we're seeing main event this Saturday coming up. And I was excited to see Gilbert Burns fight Usman. I'm still excited to see this fight. I think that division is super stacked. And I can't wait to see a carousel of fighting there, of guys just taking turns at each other and establishing some sort of pecking order. Or the more exciting scenario would be that they all beat each other up and there's no clear-cut winner. Bad for them, good for the viewer. Sad news came for us gamers earlier this week when World of Warcraft's Wreckful passed. From personal experience, he really inspired me in gaming to what the potentials were. What a peak performance looked like. Someone who transcended what we thought was the best. And we knew that he struggled with mental health, and I think that really hits home for a lot of people who struggle with mental health, seeing someone struggle with it and people were unable to help, or he was unwilling to allow people to help. And so it's really sad to see that play out. Guy was super smart, super entertaining, just like Robin Williams passing, other really important people that we've lost too soon to mental health. It's really important to reach out to friends, family, loved ones, even if they're not struggling with mental health, just to be there for people. This pandemic is really testing people's mental fortitude. So even people who before really didn't struggle with mental health, they might be now. I think everyone is learning a new normal. So, reach out to your friends, your loved ones, the ones you haven't heard for a while. Just let them know that you're there. Because it really can change someone's world just to know they have someone caring about them. People who maybe feel like nobody does care about them and no one's there for them, to know, hey, I at least have one person that would be really sad to lose me. Sometimes it's not always that easy. A lot of times it's not always that easy. But we have to try. We have to try to do something to be there for people. For some people, it might be too late. For some people, it might not make a difference. But for someone, it will make a difference. And we have to try. You know, this whole world has operated on the low percentage thing in history happening, and it happened. You know, our whole existence, you know, exists on low probability events happening. What? You're really coming in here to ask me about that during my stream? Yes, you can have one. That's really all I had. I really thought that was going to take up more than 30 minutes. Hoping here in the next couple of weeks we can get the whole gang together. When Aaron, Vanessa, and I get together, you know, our first off-air podcast that we ever recorded, we were at it for like 2.5 hours and probably could have gone longer, but it was like already 10 o'clock on a Sunday or Saturday. So we'll definitely have longer podcasts once we have the whole group together. Have been enjoying these. Haven't seen a lot of activity on here, but if you're watching this, please leave questions. If there's anything like to talk about gaming wise, sports wise, life wise, I'm always down. Currently playing WoW Arenas. On the side, play League of Legends, Valorant. Was trying to get into Rainbow Six. We'll have sports here pretty soon, and when we do, these podcasts might go every couple days. So we might have a schedule so that it looks something like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. We'll see. Everyone stay safe, and always remember we're all in this together.